Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Simple Songwriting. I think this is episode 29. I think this is going to be "Can You Feel It" by Polyphia. I'm your host, Saint Aria. We're doing something different today. So this is an instrumental. I think on my second solo breakdown, this show started off as a podcast with one of my friends. He had some life stuff come in, but I started doing these breakdowns as a separate thing, and that's kind of what it's turned into. So on the second one that I did by myself, I did Tender Surrender by Steve Vai, which was a cool song, and I enjoyed doing it, but I don't know if that was a very good episode. I think I was like sharing the tab. It was a test, right? I was just checking it out. But I love Steve Vai. I'm a guitarist myself, and by extension, I also love Polyphia. I think Polyphia is super cool. And yeah, this song came out 2 weeks ago, and I've been loving it, and I'm just excited to break this one down. So it's definitely going to be different though, because I've gotten a little more experience doing the show. But for the past like month and a half, I've been doing Evanescence songs, which are very lyric heavy. So I've been talking a lot about like lyrical themes and lyrical ideas. So I'm going to kind of use this as a test and maybe just a little bit of practice. Breaking down a song that essentially has no lyrics. I mean, there are samples that give us, indication. There's samples and audio clips in this song that give us an indication on what the song is about. But for the most part, we're doing a lot of musical storytelling. I would also like to be able to break down more songs from this album when it comes out, because I'm probably going to like it. Right now, this is my most anticipated album of the year. So yeah, this is going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit different, so bear with me, because it is tough. It's going to be tricky, I think, talking about just the music. And I'm going to try to do it in a way that is, I don't like to get super deep into theory, because I like for the show to be appealing to people who know music and people who don't know music. But I think that I think I'm going to try to straddle that line, right? I'm going to try to make it, appealing enough so that maybe musicians can get some value from it, and then break it down in a way that non-musicians can appreciate it too. But first, before we get into the breakdown, a little bit of background on me with Polyphia. So I've actually known about Polyphia since like 2012. I watched some of their original videos for like Inspire and stuff, the ones where they were playing basically in their rooms, and I always thought they were super good players, really talented. But I'll be honest, it didn't quite click for me. When they came out with Muse, I listened to that and I thought it was cool. Again, like they've always been interesting musicians, and they've had like an interesting approach to music, but I didn't quite see where it was going with Muse. I mean, and it's a lot of like, it's just a lot of notes for a lot of songs, and and because it's all instrumental, I was like, I don't really get the point. And again, I'm not saying that I was right or wrong there. That was just kind of my take on it. When they came out with Renaissance, I thought it was better. I enjoyed Renaissance, but I felt kind of similarly, where I was like, I'm not quite sure, like, where does this band go? These guys are so good, but they're all instrumental. I'm not sure where it goes. Around 2017, or really late 2016, I just stopped kind of listening to rock music in general. It was 2017, actually. Yeah, I just stopped listening to rock music. I got really into like rap and pop and things like that. And I genuinely, I didn't listen to any rock. And so I saw that Polyphia was posting stuff, but I just didn't even listen. It was a weird time for me, but it was a decade ago, but I just didn't even listen to anything for Polyphia. So I missed out on the most hated and New Levels, New Devils. So around 2020, during the pandemic, I had like a little thing with guitar where I was like, I have to get like something new. I have to find something new. I felt like I had been playing the same things on the guitar over and over and over again. And so I was like, you know what, let's go check in on the Polyphia guys. Or actually, no, first I went to Jason Richardson. I was going and listening through some Jason Richardson, and then one of the recommended videos was Blood Moon from Tim. And I clicked on it, and I didn't remember his name was Tim Henson, but I clicked on it and I watched Blood Moon, and I was like, holy shit, what is this? Like, this is like next level shit. And I remember thinking like, who is this guy? And, he's got the neck tattoo and all that, but I was like, he kind of looks like one of the guys from Polyphia. And I think, I don't remember off the top of my head, I think even the red hoodie he was wearing had like the Polyphia logo on, or had Polyphia on it, like the Polyphia Club or something. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I just knew I recognized the hair, and I was like, is this one of the guys from Polyphia? So I went back and started listening to, and basically found New Levels, New Devils, and Most Hated. And I was like, holy shit, like these guys went a totally different direction. And this is awesome. Like, this is actually fantastic shit. So yeah, I was like all about it. I loved what they were doing. So that's kind of my history with them. And then, around that time we got like the Playing God, but we didn't know it was called Playing God. It was called the Album 4 teaser, where Tim just plays the Playing God lick to a beat. And yeah, I was like, this is great. And then Remember That You Will Die came out. Love that album. A lot of really, really great songs on that album. Some not so great songs too, but like I'd say 75% of that album is like A+ shit. Like, it's fucking awesome. So yeah, here we are. We got a new album cycle coming up. They just got done playing a whole bunch of live shows and touring and doing all that. And I think that the vibe that I was getting listening to a few of the interviews was that they wanted to have a better live show and music that was a little bit more intense live. I actually saw them live, I think 2 years ago. And I have to admit, I don't know if it was the audio or what, but like Playing God, for instance, did not sound good live. That song did not translate well live at all. And I think that they maybe recognize that, it's cool to do all the clean stuff and the acoustic stuff, but it still doesn't really compare to like a big electric guitar. So they came out that we now have this song. It's called Can You Feel It? And I think that it straddles that line between being fun and exciting and energetic in a live setting, and kind of easy to play in a live setting too. I learned the main riff, and it's not a super difficult riff, unlike Playing God, which is like unbelievably difficult to play. So it's like easy and fun, but then they do have a lot of moments in this song that keep with the complexity as well that we expect from Polyphia. So I think that this is a cool song. I'm excited to break it down. And yeah, let's just dig in. Okay, so real quick, before we dig in to the song itself, I want to do a couple like house cleaning items for this breakdown. So the first thing to do or to talk about is that this song, it's an instrumental, so it doesn't have the normal, verse, chorus structure that a lot of songs have with vocals. So I want to... I'm just going to explain this outright. This song basically has like two main musical motifs. It has the main riff, which is what we start the song with, and then it has a second riff, which is like a dun 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 dun, that little sound that you hear throughout the song. Those musical motifs make up like 90% of this song. I think there's only one section that doesn't, in some way align with one of those two motifs. So what I've done here with the structure is I've tried to break it down by which motif is that section is being based on. So you'll see that in the current section right now, it says main riff intro. And then you can see throughout the sections, it either says like main riff or second riff. I think that's just going to be a cool way or an interesting way for you guys to keep track of like, okay, what's kind of the basis or the foundation for this section? And I thought it was an interesting thing that they did where the whole song is based around these two musical ideas. Next, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, which is when we get to a certain point in the song, I'm going to talk a little bit about the music video. I just want to give a precursor on it because I don't usually like to do that. I think that when you're looking at a song or really any work of art, you should look at it for what it is kind of on its own. So like, this is a song. I want to base the song off of what it is. So I almost never look at the music videos, but in this case, I think specifically the first video is very important to the meaning, understanding the meaning of the song. Not that you couldn't gather the meaning from just the song itself, but I think it will bolster it and give us a little bit of insight. And I'm only really doing this because it's an instrumental, but also it's an instrumental with kind of a specific goal in mind. If you've seen the first video, you probably understand kind of what I'm talking about. So I'll still examine the song on its own, but I will bring in the video when I discuss the theme later on. And then the last thing is I did buy the tabs for this song and I used it to kind of examine some of the guitar parts. I'm not going to show them because I think that would just get me in a lot of trouble. And besides, like, they're $5. Tim and the guys, Tim Scott and the Clays, they work really hard on these songs. Go buy the tabs. Even if you're not like a super musician, go buy them. They're $5 and they are like super interesting. It's really interesting to see how they compose this stuff and how they put it all together. Yeah, but regardless, I think that's about it. Yeah, I'm going to try to break this down. Like I said, I have the tabs and I'll talk a little bit about some theory and the guitar parts and stuff, but not too much. I want people who play instrument, I want musicians and non-musicians alike to be able to enjoy the episode. So with all that said, let's get started. We're going to start with the beginning of the song. Cool. So we start with the main riff immediately. That is kind of the intro. Though the riff does have like a little bit of a filter on it, so it's a little. I think which pass filter is that? Is it a? Sorry, my mouse. Yeah, it sounds like it's got a low pass filter, so that means the higher frequencies have been cut out of it. There's also this really bright poppy synth playing over top. I'll use this word and I'll probably use it again later, but it's a little heavenly, you know? But yeah, not in terms of like heavenly, in terms of having this big spacious ambience, but more of like how high pitched and bright the chords are. They're certainly not dark, demonic chords, you know? Very bright and light, you know? That's that. So yeah, speaking of the chord progression, or speaking of chords, this progression here, so this song is in the key of A minor, but this main riff has like an F, E, F progression, or F major, E minor, F major progression. Now there is like an intermediary chord, so the song starts with an F major, that's an F major. I don't know what chord that is. I didn't look it up, but the more pertinent chord is this chord that comes right after it, which is the E minor. So you have F, some other chord, E minor. So that's a minor chord that they hit there, and then back to F major right there. And then we have this fourth section. So the fourth section is a chromatic buildup, which means that it's not necessarily in a key. It's just playing each note like up a half step, like da 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 da. So it's just playing the next note that's possible to be played. I'll come back to that chromatic buildup in a second, but regarding the chord progression itself, the F major, so in the key of A minor, F major is the Lydian chord. Lydian, from like a modal perspective, has this very ethereal, it's almost major key, but not quite. And so it's got this kind of ethereal, uplifting sound to it. Whereas E minor, in the key of A minor, E minor is dark and aggressive. From the modal perspective, it's Phrygian, which is one of the darkest modes you can have. It might even be the darkness, it might even be the darkest, depending on your thoughts on Locrian. I know non-musicians won't understand any of that. What I'm saying though is that this section here, because of the chords and the key that it's in, has F major, which is uplifting and ethereal, and then E minor, which is dark and aggressive. So what's interesting is that this riff itself is actually kind of bouncy and energetic. It goes back and forth between these bent notes, like, and then these like staccato quick notes. So wow wow down 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 and again like that wow, very like static sounding, but it's like those are bent guitar strings that are happening. So yeah, it's a cool contrast between this very fluid, energetic like long notes and then these super staccato, almost electronic short notes. Wow now down down. The rhythm itself isn't too complicated, but it just has a lot of energy and it's actually a lot of fun to play. I'm not going to play it right now, but like, yeah, it's a cool riff. The thing that's really interesting about this riff though, or real quick before I get into that, what I wanted to note was that there is this nice contrast between how energetic and like how pumped up the riff sounds, but then the underlying chord progression is adding in these additional like emotional elements to it. So it's not just like on its face like a regular A minor riff. It's actually using these modal changes to give some more complex emotions to it than you might initially think. I'll probably talk about that a little more when we get into the theme, but just understand that there's more going on from a musical perspective than meets the eye. There's more than meets the eye. One thing that's really cool that the non-musicians might not know is that they're actually playing this on the guitar an octave up, much higher. And what they're doing is they're playing it up, but then they have a sound effect or what's called a whammy-pedal where they are able to detune the guitar by an octave. So if you were to play the riff itself, it would actually sound like no, 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 no. But because they've tuned it down an octave with a pedal, it sounds the way it sounds, like burr, burr, burr. This is normally kind of a weird thing to do. You wouldn't normally down pitch this way, but because they've done it like this, it actually gives the sound of the guitars it gives the guitars a really unique sound because they're playing these low notes, but they're playing it on very thin, higher pitched strings. And so they can get this kind of unique sound. That's how they're getting the sound. It almost sounds bubbly, like bow, 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 because the strings are thinner. They're going to pop a little bit more. They're going to, vibrate at a higher frequency, right? But then you're just bringing that whole thing down an octave. So you get all of that pop and energy and the warbliness of it, but then you still get the low element of it too. So listen to it and pay attention to how the notes themselves sound, especially the long notes, and how bendy and fluid they are. Like that wow, wow, like you normally couldn't get that sound from a low tuned string, but because they're doing it, I mean, that's being played on the G string, which is a thinner, not wound string. It's just a straight nickel string. I think it's nickel, right? No, it's not nickel. I don't know what material it is, but it's not a wound string, and wound strings are usually harder to bend like that. Regardless, pretty cool, a pretty cool creative decision that gives it a unique, energetic sound, but then also gets their like low chugs. Like you hear how low that burr, 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 burr. So they get like the best of both worlds. They get the energy, but then they get the low chugs, and it sounds all heavy and shit. Yeah. So then the last thing to note on this is you get this chromatic buildup. Honestly, I think this is probably one of the weakest sections in the song in general. It's just a little on the nose. This chromatic thing right here. And the guitar kind of cuts out there, so you can't really hear the guitar as well. But there is, because it turns into kind of a EDM buildup. Basically, the guitar fades out while the 808s and like synth sounds build up. Here, listen. Try to keep your mind on the guitar. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a little on the nose. It's a build-up. It's fine, and it's kind of cool to do in a rock song. It's again gives it like a little bit of levity, but I do think it's just a tiny bit corny. But it doesn't kill it for me. Yeah. Aside from the main riff, you have these like little sparkle synths that play right here, I think. Yeah. Hear that? Like doom doom doom. Then you get when you hear like the boom boom, there's also this like lower, it almost sounds like a percussion that comes in. You hear that, it sounds like percussion to me. Regardless, it's there, it's kind of cool, and it gives that a little bit of extra energy, because that is a pretty energetic energetic part. And then the last thing to note here, I know and I want to be clear, I like pointing out all of the stuff, as much stuff as I can when I do these breakdowns. There's no way I'm going to be able to talk about every single thing that this song does. This is an immense song. This is like, from a production standpoint, this is crazy. But I'm going to do my best, especially early on, to kind of get a couple of those things in there, and then point out some of these smaller layers, and then we'll just see how it goes. I can point out lots of things, but I don't want to be talking for 3 hours. It's going to be a crazy episode if I do that. We're already 20 minutes in, and we're roughly 10 seconds into the song. So the last thing that I wanted to note is that you can hear Scott's guitar harmony come in like right here. It's kind of on the right side of the panned mix. Right here. Hear it one more time. Then we get the build up. Cool. So I'm going to let this next section play out, but that is that section. Let's do this. Okay. Just don't let me go. All right. So that first section was the main riff. We've basically broken down the main riff. This is now the second riff. So this is less of a riff and more of a rhythm. And it's specifically that dum 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 dum. Listen for that. Let's listen to that, and yeah. Cool. So that's really it. I mean, it is just generally that rhythm. I'll talk about those bell notes in a second and what's going on from a pitch standpoint. But the first thing, and I think this is probably the most notable thing about this section, is we get our sample. So I haven't been able to figure out exactly where this sample comes from. I'm starting to think that it was something that they just did on their own. But I've seen a few people say that this comes from Can You Feel It by the Jacksons, or the Jackson 5. I don't quite see it. And I've actually heard people say in Reddit, I was reading the Reddit on this song, and people were saying that it interpolates the Jackson song, and I haven't been able to figure out where it would interpolate it beyond just this phrase. But with that said, the way that they say, Can You Feel It in the Jackson song is very different from the way they sing it here. And to me, this version of it sounds much more like the song Can You Feel It by Larry Heard or Mr. Fingers. I couldn't find the version, the correct version on Spotify, but if you go to YouTube and you look up Larry Heard with Can You Feel It, you can find that there's a version of the song with like a black and white music video. I think it's got like 4.7 million views, and that has a version where the guy starts off saying like, can you feel it? Kind of almost exactly like that. And to me, that's much more in line with the way that this, sample sounds. So I don't know. And I think given the house inspiration on this song, because it is very much inspired by house music, that seems to fit a little bit better than the Jacksons version. Though the Jacksons version is kind of a similar, it's a similar, what do you call it? Theme, I guess, of like everyone coming together. Regardless, if you know the exact place where this sample comes from, please let me know. I'd be very curious, because I really tried to do some digging and I couldn't find it. But go check out the Larry Heard version. It's really good. Cool. So yeah, aside from that, you get this. Let's talk about this bells now. So we get our sample. Well, and actually, sorry, real quick. There's a few extra lyrics. So the sample says, "Can you feel it?" And then it says, "Oh, let your heart feel it. Just don't let me go." don't let me go. So that's the whole sample. It's pretty like uplifting, kind of spiritual lyrics. Hits you in the feels, right? Can you feel it? Yeah, it's there's like a wistfulness to these lyrics, and I think that I don't want to get into it yet because I want to discuss the theme overall kind of later on. But yeah, it's a cool line, open to interpretation, but we'll get to it anyway. So for this second motif, it's a pretty simple, or this like rhythmic motif. It's pretty simple. What it is dotted eighth notes, I believe. So that means there's 3 16th notes in between each one. So so that's what it is, like so that's how you're getting. That's why it sounds kind of weird and off-putting. It's like and then you have that shorter run at the end because that just kind of clears out the that sort of resolves the that allows it to fit within 2 measures essentially. I think if you just do the math on the 3, what is it? If 16 times 2 is 32, and then yeah, you have 10 groups of 3 and then 1 group of 2. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so 10 groups of 3 and then 1 group of 2 gets you to 32, which is 16 eighth notes. That fits cleanly into 2 measures. I think that's right. I might have gotten my exact things wrong, like my nomenclature wrong there, but that's what's going on. Anyway, regardless, in this section, you just have the bells playing that motif. So it gives it a very open feel, those types of high-pitched bells. They're building tension, of course, because we're getting into the song, but they're not like aggressive and heavy. They're just kind of light there. But we do have some aggressive, heavy stuff happening. So we get this real heavy guitar. So again, I want to note they're playing on a 7-string here, and they've got that low string tuned down to an A. I don't know. You know what? I should just open the tab and have it open so I can check on stuff like this, because I don't know if they have that whammy down an octave. Hold on, whammy on. Yeah, it looks like they keep, oh no, it is whammy down an octave. They turn the whammy off there. Okay, so it's not down an octave. Yeah, so that's just a normal A chord that they're playing on the 7-string guitar. So I mentioned earlier on the main riff how the chord progression is F major, E minor, F major. On this section, it is straight up just A minor. So that is your regular A minor, super aggressive, low, chuggy, minor key stuff. I think that kind of matches well with the the rhythm itself is a little bit fun, kind of uplifting. Not uplifting, but it's like bouncy and energetic. And so it kind of it's like a nice thing or it's kind of cool to have that really low aggressive guitar over top these high pitched bells, right? Like, and especially with these drums, like the drums are very like all over the place and kind of groovy. They're funky. So throwing that really low heavy guitar is always cool. I mean, heavy guitars are just cool in general, right? So yeah, it's dope. So now regarding the bass and the drums, so this has been a little bit of a thing I've noticed from the people, the fans. There's no real drums or bass on this song. This is all synth, drums, and bass. I think this is honestly one of my biggest gripes with the song. The 2 Clays are fantastic. The bassist is Clay Gober, and the drummer's name is Clay. Oh, shit, I'm gonna mess up his name. Achelman, I think his name is. Here, hold on. Let's get it right. Let me look it up. Clay Achelman. I think it's Achelman. Crazy name he has. Anyway, regardless, it's all synth, drums, and bass. Kind of like, don't get me wrong, the drums and bass sound pretty good on this song in general. Like, the production is great, but if you go and you listen to the live, like the jam session playthrough that they did a few days ago, I'm recording this on the 26th. They just released it this week. yeah, they sound incredible. It just sounds way better having the real musicians play on the song. So I'm not quite sure why they did that. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but it was a bit of a bizarre choice. Yeah, I'm not sure what the mentality was. Maybe they just really wanted to go all in on like it being an EDM track. But regardless, it's, you know, especially for like a first single from the album, it's a very strange choice. We'll get to it later. At the second half of this section, though, we get a little bit of a change. We basically get, or the drums switch to like a house beat right here. And then we get these massive, like, I think they're even clipping a little bit, these massive synths. And then in between the synths, you hear the sample saying, don't let me down. So yeah, those synths are crazy. They're like huge and energetic. Yeah, overall, pretty cool section. And already at like, we're at the 29-second mark. We've set up our two main motifs. One of them is the kind of fun, bouncy riff that has a little bit of darkness to it. This is like the main riff. And then the other is more of like the dance rhythm, but with this heavy, aggressive, low chugs because it is just in straight up A minor. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, that's right now we're setting up a really energetic kind of fun song, but well, right now it's energetic and fun, but there's like these little hints that there might be more to it. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. So then we get what I would say is the closest thing to a verse in this song. But yeah, it's still based on this second riff. So I'm gonna let it play and we'll talk about it. Cool. So let's stop right there. So yeah, this is basically a lot of this music is very similar to the previous section. So we have the bells still playing that rhythm, that dum 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 dum. The most notable aspect is the verse guitar, which is playing kind of like a distorted, very like it has this weird element of like it sounds tough. And not like tough to play from a technical standpoint, but it just sounds very like bitey, like it's got this bite to it. And remember how I mentioned that this rhythm is dotted half or dotted eighth notes, so it's like da 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 da. The guitar here is playing that. So here, think of it like that and how it follows that rhythm. You know. Yeah, so it's cool. And so the melody that it plays, it starts off in that higher octave and then it actually goes down an octave and plays the same thing down an octave. So here, listen to that again. Here's the higher octave. So that's pretty cool. And then it goes back to the higher octave again. So yeah, cool melody. One thing that I want to note, or cool little lead section, I want to note something here. After that main part, that there's a section that goes like right there. Do you hear how cool that sounds? So I've been trying to, I was looking at that, trying to figure out how are they getting that sound? Because I mean, honestly, the closest way I can describe it is it sounds like a fucking laser beam, you know, like Star Wars or something. But listen to that again. Listen for it. I'll point right there. Yeah. So they have some tone going on, but what's that's giving them this really cool effect. I don't know exactly what effect that is, but they are picking extraordinarily fast there, like so fast that you almost can't even hear the articulation. You just kind of hear the effect that it has going through the, you know, whatever. You just sort of hear the percussiveness go through, and it sounds, again, like it sounds like a laser beam. And again, whatever effect they have on it, whatever tone they have, or whatever they did to get this tone, it just sounds killer. It's awesome. It's a really unique guitar tone overall. Yeah, like this guitar part is really cool. All of this is really cool. There is a harmony part there, but it's like damn near impossible to hear. It's a low harmony. Yeah, I can barely hear it in the back, and it's more of just like, it's less of a harmony in this version. You can hear it really well on the playthrough because it's what Scott plays. But yeah, regardless, cool guitar section, cool stuff going on. And then also that like percussive, I didn't talk about it, the hold on, right here. Right there. It's really cool. So we've got a lot of like funk going on, which actually that brings me to the percussion. So the percussion almost sounds like we got some maracas or something like that. Like there's a lot of lively world production, like worldly production is kind of what it's, you know, like if I'm looking for this type of production in Logic, this is where I'd find it, under the world section. Listen to those maracas. So yeah, this is just like super funky, super cool, really cool stuff happening. It honestly makes me think of like one of those jungle tunes from the 80s. I hate to say Africa, the song Africa, because it's written by a bunch of white dudes, but like you get what I mean, right? Like that 80s synth vibe, or like, no, sorry, 80s like jungly vibe, you know. I can feel it calling in the air tonight. That type of thing. Anyway, regardless. Like the previous section, I'm looking at my notes to make sure I got everything. So we get these, we get the beat changed to a house beat again, halfway through. There's that house beat. Just don't let me go. And then we get the same synths with the sample as well, but this time we have harmonized leads playing. They're not like super fast, but they're just a nice 16th note run. It is pentatonic. Fun fact, it's a pentatonic run. Kind of cool to notice, or kind of cool to note that. Yeah, and that builds up into the next section. So yeah, this is, again, like right now we're still building the energy, and this is a good progression from the prior section. And it gives us a little bit of that shred, right? Like the second half of this song doesn't necessarily have shred in it. Whereas, so I think it's nice to get these little moments in this first half. Yeah. So again, this isn't a section that's going to get repeated, that riff or whatever, or that lick. But it's pretty close to being a verse. This next section is probably the closest thing we actually do have to a verse, though. So I'm gonna let this play out. Just don't let me go. So this is the only section that I labeled a verse. And what's interesting is that this seems to be the only section that doesn't, maybe it follows along a little bit with the second riff or the second musical motif. No, I don't think it does. I think this is the only section of the song that does not follow either of the two musical motifs. So that's kind of cool. What it mainly is these guitars playing this very percussive riff. You know, it's a cool little part. They're actually playing continuous notes and just muting certain notes in between them, which is what gives it such a like percussive, like funky, groovy sound. And then a harmony comes in very quickly, like almost immediately. Right here. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. They layered that, and it sounds really great. Again, very much like I brought up that like 80s pop funk type of thing, and I think that's totally in line with what we're going for here. Pretty cool. One thing to note as well is that pentatonic harmonized lick that they played leading into this section, they actually hit some high notes and then do a slow dive bomb. Really cool. Really cool decision there. And I think, especially when you look at the first video, again, I'm going to talk about the first video just a little bit more later, but there's some clear imagery here of like, it's a little, well, it's harrowing, and that kind of sound is very harrowing, you know, like a bomb dropping, right? You know, and so we're playing fun, energetic music, but there's like a tinge of darkness in this song. I wouldn't even say a tinge. There's like definitely some darkness in this song, especially the later we get. But yeah, I think that it's little things like that that kind of hint at the like what's really going on here, and that it's more than just like a fun, cool dance track with bow, 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 bow. You know, it's more than that. It's like there's actually some emotional layers here. So yeah, it's a cool section overall. Yeah, and then at the end of it, we get these huge synths once again, or at the end of this section. Oh, we get our beat that comes in. Some more harmonies, nothing too crazy though, still playing just like regular 16th notes. And that does follow that like, don't let me down, that. And so now we go back to the main riff here. So just so we're clear, we've started off with the intro main riff, but it had a filter on it. It wasn't like the full thing. Then we had the second motif get established kind of on its own. Then we had that motif evolve into a lead part, where we got kind of a lead guitar verse with a little bit of shredding. And then we just got this kind of funky section with that very harrowing dive bomb leading into it, which gives us like, okay, there's maybe a little bit more depth happening here, but we're coming back to the main riff now. So let's let that play out. Shit. Sorry. So yeah, we're not there yet. So just this first section here. So we go back to the main riff. And yeah, this section is very huge, very epic. I've already talked about the main riff. It's played the exact same way, but we get these massive horns and kind of going all out, you know, on one part here. Right here. Which is that's a tension building note there. I don't know if that's harmonic minor. I'm not gonna figure it out. It's a tension building note, very tense. I think that is harmonic minor. I think that's a sharp seventh, but regardless, it could be a second as well. Major second. Anyway, regardless, we get also the snare is doing some snare rolls. And again, this is the type of thing where I really would have loved to have like a real, it might be a real drum here. No. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a real drum. Yeah, so anyway, that, yeah, that's cool. So we get the snare roll. It has this like epic, I don't want to say like warlike, but there's this epic like foreboding, like we're going big here. And I think it's a nice contrast as well from the very tight percussive sections that we just had. Again, it's worth noting that like there's more serious emotions being portrayed here as well with this chord progression. So it's nice to see that they're like playing into that with these big horns and this big epic sound, because these aren't like happy horns. They sound dark and a little bit, there's like a little bit of sadness to them, I would say. Yeah, so that's it. Main riff. I think that's everything on this section. So we can go into the next one, which, yeah, I'm just gonna let it play out. So I'm calling this like the main riff buildup section, or empty, basically, like the empty main riff, because everything cuts out except for the main riff. I really like the way this sounds. So it actually sounds super raw. So like with how produced this song is, like I would almost say it's maybe even a tiny bit overproduced. We'll talk about that later. Mr. RJ, I don't know how to say his last name, RJ Pasin, whatever his name is. He definitely was, he was a producer on the song, and he's definitely got his hand in it. But it's nice to get like just that main riff by itself. And it has a little bit of light reverb. It sounds like a concert hall reverb, like an arena reverb, because it's very huge. But again, this song was made for like a live show. And something like this is going to sound killer live. So yeah, listen to that reverb and how huge it is. Hold on. Yeah, super cool. Now we get, so I mentioned how the other guitar parts weren't quite as fast. I mean, they are fast, but they weren't really there. Now we get our like extremely fast lead harmonies, and they have essentially no reverb. They're like right in your face, which I think is a cool contrast compared to like, again, that main riff playing with the reverb on it. And that riff keeps playing, by the way, throughout this whole section. So yeah, listen to these guitars. They sound killer. Yeah, and right when the guitars end, this huge synth 808 thing comes in, and we get more of those bright synths as well, like that heavenly bright tone. Yeah, it's really cool. Just these big long notes, and then the guitars play again. And then everything else comes out. So I have to note, so this is all really cool, this contrast of like you have the sort of main riff in the middle, kind of quiet with the reverb on it, and then harmonies that come in and land on these giant synth notes. Like this is just super, super epic, super huge. Like this is a very grand song, very different from the stuff that we got on like Remember That You Will Die, which was very tight, very controlled, you know, like Playing God and the Audacity and even like Neurotica, right? Like I wouldn't think of those songs as being epic in the same sense as this. One thing that I want to note, we've had a ton of production on this song. We're about halfway through, you know, tons of guitar layers and synths and electronic sounds and percussion, maracas, all of that, right? It's a lot to cram into the song, and I think that they've done a great job balancing it up to this point. I do think that them cutting everything out for this chromatic section, it was like one too much for me. Right there. I feel like they've done a lot of starts and stops, and it's been very janky and all over the place. And that's cool because I think that again, we'll talk about it more when we get into the theme, but I think that they're trying to portray a certain emotion with this song, and that's why they have all of these starts and stops. But with that, I just think that this specific one, especially with how weak that buildup is, like from a compositional standpoint, it's just kind of a relatively bland part. It's like you guys probably could have done something a little bit cooler than that, or a little bit more layered. Again, I know it's easy for me to sit and talk from my, you know, the throne in my home, right? But it's just not that compelling of a section. It's just like, yep, we're building up. And then for them to cut everything out when they literally just cut everything out 10 minutes before, or 10 seconds before, you know, right here, or right here. And then to do it again. It just felt like one too many. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, guys, I get it. You all can stop at the same time, or you're just going to cut the production. And it just like, how many times are you going to do this start, stop thing? Small critique, genuinely a small critique. I've loved the song so far, but when I was listening through for the first time, and even now when I'm listening through it kind of casually, when it gets to that part, I always am like, you guys probably could have, I don't know. It just doesn't quite hit. It's like, you know, you get desensitized to it, right? That dynamic of everything cutting out and there just being like one thing there, you get desensitized if you do it too much. And I feel like that happens at this specific point in the song. Yeah, again, not the craziest critique, but like just something to note. Anyway, so we've got the next section. Let's let it play out. All right, so we're back into the main riff. So at this point, the past 3 sections have been that main riff. The first time they played it was pretty big, you know, kind of a buildup with the snare and the horns, like the snare rolls and the big horns. The second time we played it, it was kind of by itself, very empty, but with these crazy shredding guitars playing sextuplets, which land on these massive synth and 808 hits. But then end again with just the empty build-up guitar leading into this. This is just a straight up like EDM drop. This is, you know, there's a few little glitches throughout. Like I think they stop at one quick moment halfway through. But honestly, it's about as standard of an EDM drop as you can get. You have that kind of classic EDM beat. You get that repeated vocal sample, kind of, you know, beat, feel it. And then the guitars are essentially mimicking a like EDM synths and those types of electronic noises. So this is a cool section. This is actually a really cool section. This is much simpler than the stuff that we would normally get from Polyphia, but it's cool. And it's got a lot of energy and it fits, and we've kind of built our way up to it in a way that I think is pretty satisfying. Yeah, I think this is a good spot to talk about like this album or this song in particular. And I think this album is almost certainly going to be made for live shows. They just got done touring. They just got done playing with these massive massive crowds, massive audiences, opening for bigger bands than them, playing festivals and stuff. And I even heard Tim made a comment about like, you know, acoustic guitars are made for like coffee shops, or like nylon string guitars are made for coffee shops, you know? And it's true. And like, I love Playing God. I think Playing God is actually a better song than this song. It's a fantastic song. Love Playing God, seriously. But he's right. An acoustic guitar, a nylon string guitar just can't have the same level of energy that like a big electric guitar can have. It's just not going to compare. They're two separate things. So yeah, I think when I sort of was expecting it based on some of their comments. And when I heard this song, I was like, yep, they did it. Like they have made a song that is very much, tailor-made for a live show. And you can see it with the way that they're promoting the song too. So obviously the first video was more about the theme and the idea that they're portraying, but the official music video is them playing the song live for a big old crowd of people jamming out, just rocking out. And then even the playthrough video, that the third one that they did, where they're doing, they called it a jam session rather than like a playthrough. Like if you go back and watch Neurotica, which Neurotica was an almost like surgically precise composition, very like every microsecond has to be perfect in that song for it to work, because it's just such a like technical beast of a song. Versus this song, they call it a jam session. And if you listen, there are a few, like, I wouldn't call them mistakes, but I would say like little idiosyncrasies. Is that the right word? Idiosyncrasies? Hold on. I want to get my words right. Idiosyncrasies. Yeah, idiosyncrasies. Just very slight deviations, very small, like when they're doing that down, you can hear that Scott and Tim are just kind of slightly playing it differently, which is unusual for them. The two of them are typically 150% locked in. It's crazy. And we know that they can play unbelievably technical stuff. So I think the goal here is to maybe step away from the technicality just a little bit, just enough to have some stuff that like really kicks ass live and has some energy and all of that. So then, you know, and so that means the riff can't be unbelievably difficult. They need to be able to have fun playing the riff and enjoy it. And then there also needs to be just a little bit of wiggle room for the riff to, you know, maybe not be exactly perfect 100% of the time. And again, that's not necessarily me saying that they're being sloppy. It's very purposeful and intentional for what, you know, their goals are as a band that's getting larger and becoming more popular and playing larger venues. So yeah, very cool. Yeah, this section's pretty sweet overall. Yeah, let's listen for those little glitches. I think there was just one there. Little cutout there. And then yeah, the build-up's the same. And so yeah, overall at this point in the song, so this is we're about to hit the transition point in the song. And so I wanna mark this real quick. We've set up a lot of stuff. We've set up some really cool shred guitars, very like a very memorable riff, you know, very cool riff, catchy leads, some percussive elements, you know, that I go back to that harrowing dive bomb guitar. It's a pretty cool part and gives us a little bit of insight into what we're talking about or the tone of this song. Yeah, at this stage, we've gotten a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness, that wistful "Can You Feel It" sample playing. And so, but we haven't quite gotten like, it hasn't been extraordinarily technically proficient. And there, you know, let's be honest, there is that expectation of Polyphia. So we need to see kind of where are we going, what's going to happen next, because this song definitely seems to be building towards something. But so far, it's been more fun and energetic and exciting. Let's see where it goes. All right, so we have a whole different vibe change here. So the first thing to note, so we've had the main riff play 3 times in a row. We go back to that second riff, that second motif. And this time, you know how I noted that the first one, or the first time we heard it, it was very bright and almost happy and airy? Here it is again. Dun, dun, dun. Listen to it now. Much darker. The synth is much darker, much more aggressive, a little bit more percussive, lower notes obviously, and then the guitars are holding out that muted, so it's like a muted open chord. It's something you can do on the guitar where you have your palm on the string, but you play the notes. So you're not just playing like the strings outright, but what you do is you mute them just a little bit and then play the notes, and that's how you get that kind of like muffled growl in the guitars. Yeah, it's a huge vibe switch from the like almost party anthem, you know, party rock section before, not party rock, but you know what I mean, right? Like just very upbeat, very fun, and now we're like in a really dark section, and then the guitars actually start to follow along with that second rhythm or that second riff rhythm there, and do these really low, very aggressive chugs. So with all of that said, we get this little monologue. So let's talk about this monologue real quick. So he says, "The devil is a motherfucking liar, so you know I ain't worried. Repeat it after me, bitch. I come in the name of Jesus by the power of the Holy Spirit, God Almighty, you know, ruler of heaven and earth." Okay, so the implication here from like a thematic perspective, like this basically gives us our theme. So we can start to address maybe the video a little bit and what we're talking about from a thematic perspective. So this is, the idea here is that the world, the chaos of the world is growing, it's getting crazy, and even if it's tough to identify, there's so much going on that it might be tough to identify what exactly the problem is, but you can feel it. that's the implication. We can all kind of feel that like the tension is growing. Things are like major pieces are moving around the world. And like, I did not mean to do the Trump dance there. Sorry. No, that was not intentional. Major moves are happening in the world right now. There's a lot of tension. People are pissed. And yeah, we can, and like, it feels like we're getting back into another tense period in human history, right? And we can all feel it, like it's just happening. And so the idea that they're going with here is, you know, we need Jesus, basically. And it's kind of an interesting message to get from Polyphia. I'll talk about it in just a second, but yeah, that is generally what they're going with, and you can see it with a lot of the imagery and the you know, what they're going, like Jesus is on the tour poster art, right? And this is a very, like, they're going with Christian imagery for a lot of this. So let's talk about that, because they could have just said, you know, oh, we need peace, or like some generic type of peace, but they are specifically going with Jesus and Christian imagery. So, yeah, at this point in the song, we've been setting up the chaotic nature of the world, and we now have a potential solution, which is Jesus and Christianity. But this version of Christianity that they're talking about, at least based on this speech, is not like the caring, loving, you know, Christianity. This is like the power of the Holy Spirit, the righteous hand of God, right? So with regards to how Polyphia is approaching this, I'm a little torn, and I'm gonna talk about this maybe a little more like fluidly. I don't really care if they're Christian or not. Let me be clear. They're allowed to make whatever art that they want. That's cool. But irrespective of this song, they can be whatever they want to be, right? That doesn't, you know, they can put what they want in their art. What I would have an issue with, well, let me just explain, because I'm a bit conflicted on whether or not this transition to Christianity is real, or if they're just using it as an aesthetic choice. Let me go through. So first off, from like, on one hand, they're going all in on this. They are using, like, Christian imagery is the imagery for this album. They're putting depictions of Jesus on the tour posters. A lot of this seems to be inspired by Kanye's Jesus is King album, which, you know, had that deep blue vinyl on the cover of the album art, which that deep blue, it's the same blue. I don't think it's coincidence that Polyphia is using that really deep blue as their background image and as the background for the jam session that they had. And you know, if in case it wasn't clear, during the live stream, Tim was wearing a like Jesus is King hoodie. So they're very much going all in on like the Jesus Christianity thing. They don't seem to be mocking Christianity or even having like some type of an ironic twist to it. They genuinely seem to be saying that the world is insane and that it needs Jesus. And Tim did say a while back that he's had like a spiritual awakening when it comes to music. That's all well and good. So they're going all in on it, but here's some of my problems, right? So there's a few things that make me question the validity of this. First off, this speech itself, I understand it's cool. You know, I got the power of the Holy Spirit, bitch. It's like, that's cool, but it comes off as just kind of funny, almost like a joke. Like it's very crude, it's cussing a lot, doesn't necessarily undermine Christianity, but it does seem a little like, okay, we're not going to go like all in with like an actual Christian thing. We're going to like be a little jokey about it. And well, I'll talk about that in a second, but I think that based on just this speech alone, the authenticity of the transition to Christianity is not exactly clear. And I don't think that's just me that's a little bit confused on it. I think, you know, when I was going through the subreddit, a lot of people are like, is this just a bit? Most people actually think that Polyphia are just doing a bit with this. I don't know if it's quite that simple, but regardless, it's not clear cut what their position is based on what they've put out so far. The second thing, and this was one that came out after the song was the music video. The girls have like bras that have crosses on them. And it's like that, you know, again, it's not the worst thing in the world. I get it. It's fine. But if you are Christian and you respect the cross, that is kind of disrespectful, and it does sort of undermine the value that the significance that the cross holds. And again, I understand maybe if you're not a Christian, you don't give a shit, right? But no Christian that I know, like when I think about like my grandparents or my aunts or uncles, they would not be okay with that. They would not be okay with some girl wearing a bra with crosses on it. Like they wouldn't care about that. They wouldn't care for that, right? So why are Polyphia, you know, born again Christian Polyphia, putting it in the video? It's kind of, so you see what I mean? Where it's like, that's not necessarily something that I think authentic Christians would sanction. And then lastly, and this is kind of that, like, this is one of those things where maybe I'm getting in the weeds, but I don't think so. This band has kind of used a lot of devil imagery throughout, I mean, basically for years. I mean, Tim literally has an Oni tattooed on his neck, which is like, it's a Japanese demon devil, essentially. It's like, I mean, come on. So what are we doing here? And that's where I get a little bit conflicted. I don't, like, I see, okay, you guys seem to be approaching it from a relatively respectful angle, but is it all just a bit? Like, it's just a LARP? Are you just pretending? Are you not actually Christian? I mean, could you not? Because here's my thing, right? If you're actually going Christian, and again, I don't care if they're Christian or not, but I think what bothers me is when you're going to point out these issues in the world and these issues in society and how crazy it all is, and then your message and the theme of your album and your art is going to be we need Jesus, right? But then it turns out that you're not Christian. You don't believe in the religion that Jesus founded. It's kind of like, well, what the fuck is that, right? Like, that seems very odd to me. It actually I think it actually very significantly undermines their sort of moral argument in terms of the album, right? Because I mean, even if, whether you like Christianity or not, if they are Christian, if they are pro-Christian, then at least, okay, fine, you're standing for something. But if you're anti-Christian, or if you're not actually Christian and you're just using Jesus as an aesthetic, well, I mean, it just feels kind of lame. I mean, this is really, I mean, and Polyphia has been a very funny, jokey band for basically the entirety of their career, right? And this seems like the first time, or one of the first times. This seems like the most significant jump into serious topics like politics and religion and worldly affairs that they've made. And I think it would sorely undermine the message if it turns out that they don't even believe in the message. If you don't even believe in Jesus as, you know, as a Christian, like Jesus is the Lord and Savior, Jesus is God, you follow the Christian faith, all of that. If you're just doing it for a bit, it's like all ha-has and he-he's, right? I mean, and again, it's like, it's one thing to do the ha-has and he-he's about like K-pop or, you know, BBL, Drizzy or some shit like that, right? But it's another thing to jump into an arena where or to address very serious topics and make the entire basis for your album your purported solution to the topic, which is religion and Jesus, and then it just turns out that you don't even believe in it. That's not really like a ha-ha, we were just joking about the Christian thing. That's, you know, that's not like ha-ha, he-he. That's what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Why, like, the whole album's just a LARP? Like, it's just a joke? So I don't think that they would do that, because they do take their art very, very seriously. But then there's just these things where I'm like, okay, why do you have the fucking girl with the crosses on the bra? I get it, sex sells, whatever. But like, that's disrespectful. Like, that's actually disrespectful to Jesus. And again, I know we talk about like Jesus is like this mega symbolic figure, whether you believe in God or not. Jesus has pretty much been authenticated to have been a real person who really was killed. And if you are trying to pay homage to him or respect him on this album, don't you think that's just a little disrespectful? I don't know. I mean, so I guess that's where I'm at with it. I like the message, and I like that they're offering a solution. They're not just like bitching about the state of the world. They're saying like, y'all need Jesus, the power of God, the righteous hand of God, you know? But like, I'm not quite sold on the authenticity of this transition from the band. And I'm actually a little bit concerned that if this is just a joke, if it is just a bit from them, like, I think this actually hurts the credibility, like the artistic credibility of the band to a degree. So I would hope that that's not the case. And again, I'm not saying this because like, well, I really hope that they're Christian, you know, it's, they've decided to take this stance. And if it turns out that it's inauthentic and it's just a fucking meme for them, then that's not very inspiring, or I don't know what the word is. That's just not a very good way to conduct yourself as an artist. To step into very, very serious song topics, which again, or not song, world topics, right? I mean, if you've seen that first video, you know about the topics being addressed. They're very serious, and then you step into it with this like inauthentic, jokey perspective on Christianity. That's pretty fucking lame if that's what they're doing. So I really hope that's not. We're gonna have to wait for the album to come out to see. I don't think that they would do that, but it also very much seems to be that they're just using it as an aesthetic. So I don't know. It's giving like PC Principle vibes, right? Where he was like, at one point he was like politically correct, and then like he reawakened to Christ, and now he's the most Christian. He's like power Christian Principle, right? And he's gonna tell all of y'all how to be proper Christians, and he's like more Christian. He's always been Christian and all of that shit, right? And it's like, okay, you know, this band that's used devil imagery, the main guy, Tim, sort of, I don't want to say the main guy, but like lead producer, whatever, Tim, has a devil on his neck. They got girls with their, crosses on their bras, and they're going to tell us all, Jesus, we all need Jesus. They're the big proponents for Jesus. Like, guys, I'm not quite buying it. I want to believe you. I want to believe what you're saying, because if what you're saying is all just a joke and it's just a stupid fucking LARP, then that looks really bad. Like you're being artistically disingenuous, and that's not cool. But you're jumping really hard into this Christian shit, but you still have a devil on your neck. So what are we doing? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. That's about all I've got to say about it, though. I think that covers everything. Yeah, we'll just have to see when the album comes out. But all of that said, all of that aside, this point of the song, this section of the song is pretty cool from a thematic perspective. I'm going to presume that it's all authentic and it's serious and it's real. Like, they are saying, yeah, we need to bring back some fucking religion. We need to bring back some Jesus, because holy shit, the world is a mess right now, and we are like totally losing track of what we're losing the plot, basically. So yeah, I would honestly kind of agree. I have no problem with like secular art, and like secular art can be absolutely fantastic, but I am a Christian myself. Like I'm born and raised Catholic, just how it goes. I'm not trying to push it or anything, but maybe just a little caveat just for, just to say it. What the hell's my dog doing? Okay. Anyway, so there we go. Pretty cool stuff. Let's go into the next section after that sample. So, creator of heaven and earth. Ruler of heaven. Ruler. Oh, I don't want to go into that section yet. Hold on one second, guys. I need to drink some water. Guys and gals, I know some girls watch this show too. Based on my viewer stats, roughly 11% of my audience is women. What's up, ladies? Okay, anyway, so 159, we get the ruler of heaven and earth. All right, so let's stop right there. So again, we're sticking with the second riff motif, that dun 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 dun, but this time we have these extremely heavy guitars playing just super heavy chugs over top of it. The coolest thing about this section is that we actually get a house beat, like just straight up house beat. Very, very cool juxtaposition between the chugging guitars and the house beat. So normally a house beat is like kind of fun, chill, uplifting, and then but in this case it actually has this very foreboding, aggressive energy to it, which I think matches well with the sort of perspective of Jesus that they have in this song, which is like, you know, you will be smited down by the righteous hand of God, right? So it's kind of cool to add in like this really low, heavy chugging guitar with an uplifting beat, essentially. Yeah, listen. Yeah. It's very like, you know, it's like we're the good guys and we're gonna beat your ass. You know, it's kind of the vibe it's giving. There's a few variations as well in the guitar, but for the most part, it just sticks with that same general rhythm and the chugs. You know, down, 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 down. Then we get that drop, really cool, and that brings us into this next section here, with some crazy distorted synth. Here, hold on, let's play that whole thing real quick. God, that fucking, that is hardcore. That is so fucking cool. Anyway, okay, so this next section, this section essentially stays the same. I think the drums pump up just a tiny bit. Here, listen. Here's the drums at first versus shit. See, I think the drums are just a little more aggressive, but the main thing here is this extremely volatile, distorted, high-pitched synth. So again, they've used a lot of these bright synths throughout the song. This time it is like, I mean, it just sounds wicked. Yeah, it honestly, the first time I heard it, I was like, what the fuck is going on? It is very aggressive. It like totally overpowers everything. Yeah. Yeah, that is a nutso synth. The guitars though, so yeah, the synth is cool, but the guitars are doing some cool stuff too, where they actually switch to staccato notes, like dun dun dun, instead of like those like ringing out chugs, jun, jun, jun. And then if you pay attention to the guitars, it's gonna be tough to hear if you're not like attuned to the guitars specifically. Go watch the playthrough video that they did and you can hear it much more clearly, but they do some really cool stuff here. They hit like a little harmonic, so they go like dun 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 dun. Yeah, fucking, and that heavy transition there, holy shit, that is a badass fucking riff that they do, play that little transition. That's what the fuck I'm talking about, man. Anyway, this section here feels like the whole song, like everything is just like breaking down, and not like in a pun. I don't mean, no pun intended. I'm not talking about a breakdown specifically. I mean like an actual literal, like the song is like fucking falling apart, but like in a cool, controlled way. Like they're doing it on purpose. It's just total insanity and chaos, which is perfect considering the section that we are about to get. But yeah, very, very cool. Like we are just ramping up the energy, but again, it's kind of positive, uplifting energy, and we're, you know, the righteous hand of God. That's what's happening here. I'm gonna let this next section play out real quick. Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. All right, so we've gotten to that point. This is where the song basically just goes fucking nuts. Truthfully, it's hard for me to even describe what all is going on here. It would take me fucking ages to describe everything. I'm gonna give it my best shot though, but yeah, this is extremely chaotic. Yeah, let's just start, and I'll do my best to kind of get you guys, you know, some value out of this. So the first off, this section is based around the main riff. So we're generally following that F major, E minor, F major chord progression again. So that's why it has those elements. So remember before with the main riff, it was more fun and energetic. Now we're playing that main riff, but extending it out with these longer notes. So we're getting more of the, you know, how I mentioned earlier, the dark and the ethereal and those like deeper emotions that this chord progression can offer. That's one of the reasons why this section, when it comes in, it has this like, you know, specifically with that F major chord being the basis, it's a little uplifting, but there's like this raw, or it's uplifting, but there's this like ethereal nature. It's again because F major is like the Lydian mode of A minor, and that is one of the things that Lydian has, is this very ethereal sound to it. So yeah, listen, you know, the way that it comes in is, it's like a spiritual revelation, you know? Yeah. And it's just playing, again, it's playing a very messy, distorted version of that main riff. But yeah, so that's what's going on from like a foundational theory standpoint. It's just following the chord progression from the main riff and generally the main riff. The second thing to note, and this is just talking about the guitars in general, both because there's two guitar parts here, they are just fucking nuts. This is one of the most insane compositions I've ever seen on guitar. You know, there's like, they go from being perfectly in sync or like in sync with each other, just playing harmonies, to just totally doing different things. There's like one section where at the same time, one of the guitars starts a triplet while the other guitar starts a 16th, you know, some 16th notes. So like, that makes no fucking sense. It's totally ridiculous. Here, it's like right at the beginning of the section. I'll point it out. Right here. Or actually, no, is it faster than that? I think it's, hold on, let me get the tab. Let's get it right. We're going to get it right. Hold on. Sorry, bear with me. I just want to, this is a very cool. Yep. Okay. So it's actually like the down, it's that, so yeah, one of the guitars goes, and it plays 16th notes. And then one of the lead guitar goes, and so it plays a triplet, which is just wacky. So yeah, it's like the first three notes, it immediately starts doing some weird rhythm shit. That right there, it's crazy. One guitar is doing 16ths, one guitar is doing triplets. Yeah, it's just nuts. Also, the rhythm and the lead switches back and forth multiple times throughout this section. You know, 1 second, one guitar is doing a rhythm section, and then it harmonizes, and then it goes and does a quick lead section. It's ridiculous. And then on top of all of that, you have all these crazy synths and production effects. You know, Mr. RJ, how the fuck do you say his name? Pasin, RJ Pasin. He's all over this section. Pronunciation. Pasin. RJ Pasin. Cool. That's how you say his name. I'll say it right from now on. Yeah, so you get RJ Pasin like all over this. I know I saw that there were some gripes about it, but honestly, I think it's really fucking cool what he did here. I think that this section is extremely interesting. Yeah, it's very cool. Like this insane controlled chaos. It's like overwhelming. Yeah, it's really cool. Let's see. Are there any little tidbits I can point out? Yeah, a little bit of harmony, some harmonies there. Then back to that. Yeah, that's a cool little production thing there. That guitar part isn't necessarily difficult. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's not too tough to play, but they've just produced it in a way that's very interesting and like gives it this crazy sound. Yeah. Quick pause. those long notes too. It's so cool. Again, they're getting that effect, by the way. I mentioned this before, but they're getting that because they they turned their whammy pedal on and detuned the guitar, but they're playing these low notes, but on high strings and octave up, right? And so that's why they can get that really interesting bend, because you can't typically get a bend like that on a really low string, and it doesn't have that like fluid sound that you're hearing here. So it's a very unique sound. I mean, honestly, it sounds like, I mentioned this before, it sounds like fucking laser beams. It's really cool. So now we get that. We go into the second section. So before we go into the second half of this big outro thing that they've done, I want to note that the first section, I think, has a bit more of an epic open feel. I think this is largely facilitated by the hi-hat on the drums. So the drums are playing a consistent hi-hat all throughout, which honestly I think is like the only thing that holds this section together, because otherwise it is just crazy. So yeah, just listen to that hi-hat, or it's not just hi-hat, other cymbals too. But yeah, it kind of keeps everything grooving. And then the drums cut out on the second section, on this next section, and then they quickly fade back in. Hi-hat comes back in, but then they fade out again. And then back with the hi-hat. So I'm making more of a point about the first section, why it feels just a little bit more open, not quite so insane as the second section. But yeah, now let's get into this next section. I'll let it play out. Yeah, okay, so this second section, like the first section is insane. This second section it ups the ante even more. This is mainly Scott doing a lot of fucking nutso shit. So yeah, this is Scott jamming here though. And then you can hear Tim's part, very low volume. Dum, dum, dum. Yeah, dum, dum. That's Tim. Let me play it one more time. Listen, be really closely. It's very low in volume. Dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, but the main focus is on that lead guitar. And then when everything, so as the drums sweep back in, they do some more like laser beam shit. Well, actually, they do a nice little high harmony there, or like a high section. So Scott plays, let me find that real quick. Yeah. And that's kind of what Scott plays. And then they go into this really cool, like high melody immediately after. So really cool. And then some more laser beam shit. That little crazy, like, just there's so much going on here. It's fucking nuts. And then yeah, we get another little Scott jam here where he speeds it up just a tiny bit. You know, and you can hear those synths coming into it. Dun, dun, dun. And that's probably one of the coolest fucking sounds I've ever heard on a guitar. I'm not even sure if it's like 100% a guitar. It's definitely some RJ Pasin bullshit, but like, it sounds so cool, the laser beams there. Whatever the fuck that is. Yeah, and so they do the crazy laser beam, and I think it's really cool to note that quick, like, those two quick chugs before so they go back to the main riff at the very end of this lick. That wow now, dun, wow now. But listen to those two really heavy chugs there right at the tail end. They just feel like to me, those chugs specifically feel like climactic. Like, yeah, we just fucking did that shit. It's like it's such a like caveman way to end such an insane section. Very ballsy, super fucking cool, man. Yeah, they anyway, so that's I mean, obviously all throughout the section there's crazy synths and other shit happening. Let's see. The 808's coming in and out. Yeah, one thing I wanted to note too is Tim mentioned that they were looking into like spiritual frequencies and shit like that, like frequencies that'll change your, you know, body's vibes or whatever the fuck. I don't really buy into that shit, but I have to say that the way that they've like mixed this section, it's like I kind of see that, because there is so much like the dynamics between the really bassy, like having really bassy frequencies and then going into this mid range and like cutting things out, bringing the drums back in. And like, I can just feel like the frequencies are all over the place. It's mixed really, really well. It's like one of the most interesting mixes I've ever heard. I mean, like, and I guess we've made it kind of to the end of this section. You know, I talked about some of the production. I went through the guitars in, you know, generally speaking, and then the drums as well. This section is fantastic. I mean, it's fucking nuts, but it's fantastic. It totally delivers. You know, I mentioned how like, okay, the first half, pretty cool. Like we're doing cool stuff. This is like total chaos, technical, unbelievable technical proficiency, crazy composition. If it's any indication of what the album's like, I'm so excited for the album. It's gonna be so cool. But yeah, so let me, rather than me just glazing the fucking section, let's talk about it. So first off, this is an unbelievably unique composition. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a composition quite like it. It is such a weird, interesting take on the guitar and what it can do. The way that they have the two parts layering in and out, the way that they've kind of split it up and chopped it up, but then they still play it, you know, live. You can go and listen to the playthrough. They've done it in such a way that they can actually perform it live, as opposed to maybe like some of RJ Pasin's stuff. You know, on top of that, the tone that they've used is extremely unique. I think beyond, you know, obviously they are turning, they're also turning the whammy pedal on and off in various sections. So they're like going down an octave, coming back to normal, you know, just at their discretion, right? That alone is going to give the guitars a very unique sound, but they also have given the tone, like they've got some effect or something on it. I want to say it's like an auto envelope or something. I've heard of that, but I've never used it myself. I'm wondering if that's what it is, but like basically the whole thing is just, that guitar tone is super unique, and the whole section is just incredibly unique. It's like super meaty, awesome fucking climax. I also think that it's like it works from a thematic standpoint. I mean, if this is supposed to be like the all-powerful might of Jesus, I mean, then holy shit, they portrayed it well. Like this is nuts. Yeah, it's a great climax to the song. It utilizes all the musical elements we had. You know, the chord progression and the general riffs that are being played are based on the main riff and that chord progression, but then they still incorporate that second riff, you know, dun, 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 dun. They incorporate that in there too. So they basically have smashed together their two main musical components that they've had for the song, and then expanded on them in a way that is both thematically relevant and also musically and technically impressive as shit. So yeah, this is fucking killer. This whole section is just fucking killer. Great job to the guys. Great job. Yeah, my most anticipated album this year. This is gonna be so fucking cool. It's gonna be such a cool album. I hope. Cool. But we're not done with the song yet. So after all this insane shenanigans, We get those two huge chugs, two really meaty, ballsy fucking chugs, and then we go back to the main riff. So I think what's really cool about that, so we've already heard this, right? This is what they played at the beginning of the song. Basically exactly the same. I think maybe a little bit of extra production, maybe. Here, hold on, let's compare. This is the beginning of the song versus maybe a tiny bit more production, but I mean, generally it's the same thing. One thing that I think is interesting is when this riff plays at the beginning of the song, it's building tension and it's like, oh, we're getting into it. And then when it plays at the end of the song, it's like, holy shit. Like, it's like a breather, you know, you get a little bit of fresh air after all that craziness, right? It's cool. It's a cool way to show, or it's just interesting how you can have the same section, but contextually it can mean very different things in a song. And then finally, to cap it off, we get one more little monologue.
Who created your ass, Satan? Jesus is the way to people. Fuck what you talking about.
We get one more, can you feel it? So yeah, so he says, who created your ass, Satan? Jesus is the way to be. Fuck what you talking about. Aha. So I already addressed this with the first monologue, but yeah, basically this doesn't add too much more. It's more of like I would say plant your flag, right? Like the guys can actually plant their flag and say, yeah, we did that shit. But yeah, it's a solid ending given what the song is about and all of that. It's like Jesus, you know, I think Jesus is the way to peace is a pretty cool line. Yeah, again, my only issue is I'm just not quite sold on the authenticity of this Christian stuff that they're doing. I would rather they either, I don't know. It just seems I would almost rather them just be like ironic and funny about Jesus, like either go all in and be full on Christian or just be ironic and funny about Jesus and just make fun of him like South Park or something. You know, don't pretend to be pro Jesus if you're actually not. But whatever. I already addressed this. It's my one gripe, or not my only gripe with the song, but it's one of them. So cool, we did it. We made it to the end. Holy cow, what a song. Let me drink some water and then we'll talk about it. Okay. So this is a pretty awesome song. Like, this song is fantastic. What's my hair doing? Hold on. It's flying up. Yeah, this is an awesome song. I'm really excited with the direction that they've taken. One of my favorite songs from the Remember That You Will Die was Chimera. And I always felt like they didn't even really do it justice, like that vibe of like the 8 strings and the chugs and what they had going on that song. I felt like that was a super, super unique take on like metal and heaviness. And yeah, I'm so glad that this sounds like Chimera on steroids, basically. This is nuts. Super unique direction. I would think of it as like laser beam metal or something, right? I mean, it's crazy. Great next step. I think that it's going to work really well live, which is, again, I saw them live. It was a good show, but it's like, it doesn't compare to like Avenged Sevenfold, right? Or Lamb of God or something like that, where you're just really in it, right? I think it's going to be good for them to have a few songs that you can, actually mosh to. I think that they've joked about Goat. I mean, people do mosh to Goat, but like, it'll be nice to have some huge, heavy, distorted songs that work well live. So yeah, this song's pretty badass. I think my big hang up, and I would say this is actually a pretty serious hang up for me, is the Jesus stuff. If it's not authentic, I think it would be really lame if they base their entire album off of something that they don't believe in and is essentially just like a bit to them. I think that that's just artistically pretty lame. But we'll see. We'll see is it real, if it's like an actual moral thing that they have, or if it's just an aesthetic. Because if it's just an aesthetic, I would rather them just joke about it like they did on the Look Don't Touch video. I know that was Mormons, but like, I'd rather them do something like that and just be funny and goofy than actually try to step into more serious topics and then just be funny and jokey about it. It's like, guys, some of this stuff is serious. Like you're getting into religion and politics and worldly events and stuff. Like you got to be serious. So anyway, cool. Let's talk. I'm going to give like my overview. And then there was one other thing I wanted to talk about with this song, which I thought was pretty interesting, regarding the commercial success. But I want to close out my analysis of the song itself, and then we'll talk about commercial stuff. Sorry. Okay. So the purpose of this song, it is the lead single for their new album, upcoming album. And there's a few purposes. One, they wanted to establish a new sound. In this case, it's very heavy, hyper produced, energetic sound. They wanted to establish the themes for the upcoming album, which is the chaos of the world, and then begin to introduce the Christian Jesus imagery that they're taking for the, the visual approach to this album. And then lastly, they wanted to show that they're making music that's more applicable to a live show. And this song absolutely does that. It is going to kick ass live. It's going to be very, very fun live. So yeah, a couple goals that they had for this song in general. But yeah, I think even with those larger album related goals in mind, this song was really meant to capture the chaotic state of the world and provide some type of a solution through Jesus, and that's what it is. So yeah, cool song. It was made with like, I think, good artistic intentions, assuming they're real about the Jesus stuff. But we'll see. Anyway, the genre style, I think it's a little bit reductive to call this like metal EDM. This is way more than that. There is a lot more going on than that. I think just calling it, hard rock metal is sort of the safest bet, but there's, you get funk in this song, you get shred, you get, house music, you get EDM, and then you just get total insane. You get a little bit of trap, but then you get like the total insanity that happens at the end of the song. There's a lot of pieces making up this song. It's a very interesting, unique song from a genre perspective. Structurally, this is a pretty normal song for Polyphia. They usually start off with the main riff. They have a couple verse sections, and then they go back to the main riff as like the chorus, and then they have a bridge, which then leads into their outro where they go nuts. It's kind of a formula that they followed a few times. It's like their standard formula, right, for their instrumental music. But from a normal song structure perspective, it's pretty unique. Most songs are intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. So yeah, like I think it's just cool that Polyphia have found a very unique song structure that they use just for them. It's actually a very interesting thing that they've stumbled upon with the way that they structured their songs. I shouldn't say stumbled upon, that they've developed over time. So yeah, structurally this song is very cool. It progresses in a really interesting way. Yeah, compositionally, from a compositional standpoint, honestly, this song is incredible. Like this is an unbelievable composition, and there was a crazy amount of work put into basically every second of this track. The main riff is catchy as hell. The various one-off sections, like the verses and all of that, are very engaging, very interesting. Whether it's like the percussive cleans or those like kind of staccato leads, or the insanity at the outro, which are just mind-boggling. Yeah, there was a ton of work put in. I think the one thing from a compositional standpoint that I could even say was just a little was that chromatic buildup in the main riff, the like that just felt a little like whatever. And then also I think that the drums and bass being electronic rather than the actual players is they're not bad, but it is just a little bit of a shame. I just have to note that. From a mix standpoint, this mix is fantastic. They clearly went over every element of this mix with like a fine-tooth brush. I do think that the song is really overwhelming at first. It is a huge song. Not necessarily huge, like dense. It is so dense, and there's so much going on. It's a lot. It genuinely is a lot. But I think once you listen to it, you familiarize yourself with it. It is the mix is really cool, and you can identify all the different elements, and it just becomes that the type of song where like when you're listening to it, it's like, oh yeah, there's that section, oh and there's that section, oh and there's that, and oh, I can hear what that little synth over there is doing or whatever. It's really cool. It's nice having songs that are that dense, and then you can actually pick out various things. I saw some people complaining about the clipping, but I don't know. I just felt like that was an artistic choice, and I think it worked pretty well. So I didn't have a problem with that. From a lyrical perspective, I'm just going off of the samples and whatchamacallit, audio clips. The main sample, you know, Can You Feel It, is pretty heartfelt and soulful. I do like it a lot. It's very wistful, and I think that captures, you know, maybe how a lot of people are feeling right now, where it's like, what has happened? Like, what's going on with the world? I mean, the world is just in a crazy fucking place right now. It seems to even just be getting crazier. Yeah, and then bringing in the Jesus elements, I think that it's pretty cool. Having this, they actually provide a solution to some of these problems, and that wistfulness, right? Like they are saying, hey, like bring in Jesus. Jesus is the way to peace. That's how they end the song, right? So I'm cool with that. I think that's you know, hey, like it's a positive message, and you know, they are talking about promoting peace and the destruction of the devil. So hey, there we go, cool stuff. Which kind of brings us into the theme here, which is, you know, as I've stated, the world is a crazy place right now. It's a very godless, chaotic place, and they are saying, you know, we need to bring Jesus back into our lives. I've said this a few times. It's a great message. I'm all for it. I'm just not quite sold on how authentic it is. Right now it seems a little bit surface level, maybe even more of an aesthetic, but we will see. So yeah, sorry, I've been talk for an hour and 45 minutes. Holy shit. Need water. Okay, final thing, artistic merit for this song. So final verdict. This song kicks ass. I mean, this song just kicks ass overall. I felt like Remember That You Will Die had a very stripped back sound, like they were holding back in a lot of ways for various reasons, whether it be, you know, just for the diversity that they were going for on the album, or the, you know, having all the vocals and all of that. But yeah, and in fact, Remember That You Will Die, have y'all heard some of those songs that they didn't put on the album? Holy shit, man. They really made some incredible shit and then just said, nah. And then they put songs like Memento Mori and Fuck Around and Find Out on instead. Whatever, man. That's crazy. Some of the shit that they left on the writing room, on the table. Insane. Anyway, I think that they had a lot of pent up creative energy after that album, and they seem to be totally fucking unleashing it, just like completely all out. This song is extraordinarily energetic, crazy chaotic, and creatively, it's just firing on all cylinders. It's nuts. With that said, I think not having the two Clays on the band, the bass and drums, is a bit of a bummer. And honestly, like kind of a strange choice for the lead single. We love the Clays. They're great. We want to hear them. And then also, I think this is worth noting. I think that this song is hyper produced, but maybe not quite as like technically or like guitar satisfying as a song like Playing God. Actually, I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Thematically though, I for this song, just to cap it off, I like the stance that they're taking and the direction that they're going. Just kind of wary about the Jesus messaging, but overall, this is an awesome first track for the upcoming album. I honestly can't wait to hear more. I'm super excited. It's gonna be great. It's been 4 years. It's been 400 years. It's been 4 years since the last album, and I think yeah, I'm ready to get some new Polyphia. It's gonna be great. So cool. Okay. I wanted to get all of my thoughts on the song itself out of the way before I talk about something like commercial success, because I don't think that commercial success is relevant to the quality of a song. But I do think that it's a component that you can examine, because I don't think it's just totally, I don't think that it's totally irrelevant. I just think that you can judge the quality of a song based on just the song itself. and then you can see how it plays out, you know, like and what I mean by that is like, I would say that this is probably better than a lot of Eminem songs. This song is, but Polyphia is never going to have a bigger song than Eminem. Like they're never going to be bigger than Eminem. It's just like impossible. I never say never, right? But like, that's what I mean, where you kind of have to look at commercial success based on where the artists are at, the genre, the elements of the song, and all of that. But you can still admit that, like, maybe from a compositional standpoint, there are certain songs. Like, I think Playing God is like a fantastic example of like, that probably beats out like 80% of Eminem's discography, truthfully. Playing God is a like God tier composition. So talking about Playing God, the reason I'm bringing it up is because this song doesn't quite seem to be hitting the level of virality that Playing God had. You know, they released the first video. It just crossed 1 million views in 2 weeks. They had the official music video, and then they had the like kind of jam along video, which I think is the best version. The song itself on Spotify is just over 1 million. Again, these are good numbers, but I remember when Playing God came out, like, that song was like exploding. Like that song like exploded. It was huge. Like people were talking, like that sent like shockwaves throughout guitar community, especially seeing Tim play it all the way through in one take. I mean, there's a reason why Tim's playthrough of Playing God has 30 million or almost 30 million views, right? It's because that is an insane composition. And yeah, like that song made waves. I don't see this song doing that. And I was trying to kind of figure out, well, what happened here? Like what's going on? Because it just doesn't seem to quite be catching on. Like it's not, you know, when they were doing the live stream, they were talking about how they wanted it to hit the YouTube music algorithm. And I just don't think it hit. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about like why that might have happened, just because I think it's interesting. So the first thing is, I think it is like genuinely a huge problem with it being the lead single for the album not having real bass or drums. It's like it doesn't feel like a real single. Like it doesn't, like I don't feel like it's the real song yet. I think, you know, people who listen to Polyphia are interested in watching these instruments get kind of pushed to their creative limit. And that includes bass and drums. And so we want to hear, you know, what does Clay Gober come up with? What does Clay on the drums come up with? They're very creative, and we want to hear that. So it, like, that's kind of what I'm saying, is it doesn't quite feel like the real first single because 2 of the members aren't on it. So I think that does play a small role. I don't think that that's insignificant. Right. I think that it's very much a decision it's a bizarre decision. And for Polyphia fans, it's kind of like, okay, this is cool, but we want to hear the full band. Right. And we know that they can play the parts because they did the jam session. And honestly, if you go through the comments on the jam session, everyone's just like, can you make this the actual track? Can you make this the actual track? Can you do this for real? And I think that's totally valid. I think the jam session version sounds better. Like the song just sounds better with real drums and bass. So I just don't know why they did that. It's very strange. I think the next thing, sorry, I'm like losing my voice. I've been talking for almost 2 hours now. Holy shit. I didn't think I was going to have enough to talk about with it being an instrumental, but Lord, I just be yapping. I'm just going to keep the water right here. Okay. The next thing, I think one of the things that made Playing God so huge was the tangibility of it. It's the fact that Tim could sit there with his nylon string, 6-string acoustic guitar and do a full playthrough. And this song, well, first off, it's played on a 7-string, but the production is unbelievable. But it's almost too unbelievable, you know, right? It's like this song almost feels more like a masterclass a masterclass in impressive production rather than a masterclass in impressive composition. Now, don't get me wrong, compositionally, it's incredible. And I can guarantee you, I can read the tabs and I can play a lot of these songs that they have. This song is difficult as shit to play. This is an extremely difficult song to play, especially the second half. But it's just going to be a little bit tricky for like a bedroom guitarist to pull this off and make it sound like the song and be able to play with the song, just because of how over the top the production is. You could say maybe this is like an RJ Pasin thing, but regardless of who it is, I you know, if a guitarist doesn't have a 7-string, they're immediately excluded from being able to play this song. And but regardless of whether someone can cover the song or not, again, I think there's just something really valuable about that tangibility. Like, okay, this is, you know, Playing God was just played on the instruments. Sure, there were production elements to it, but when you know, people, it's very fun to line up, you know, Clay, Tim, and Scott's different playthroughs and combine them into one video and hear how the 4 instruments make up the song, and that's the song. Whereas this song is so insane with the production, it doesn't feel like that's something that you can do. I think that kind of affects that virality with the, you know, it being an instrumental song. Yeah, so I think those are like my 2 theories about it. I mean, you could also just say that maybe the Tim Henson hype train has slowed down a little bit. I don't think so. I think people are very much tuned into what Tim's doing. But again, this isn't to say that the song's bad or anything like that, or that it won't blow up further. I mean, again, 1 million streams in 2 weeks is solid. It's fucking solid. It's good numbers. So I'm not talking bad about it, but I do think it's just, I have my eye on it and I'm curious how far it's going to go, right? I mean, Playing God, the music video has 50 million views. Tim's playthrough of Playing God has 30 million. And if after, you know, 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, this song is only at 1 million, I just don't know how it could get to those numbers. So yeah, I'm not saying that's good or bad or anything like that. It's just something that I'm observing. Maybe, you know, if you have thoughts on it, leave a comment, subscribe, like, all that shit, you know. But I just thought it was something worth pointing out. You know, it feels like there were just some strange decisions made with this song. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud at this point. But yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say about it. I do think this song is going to sound way better than Playing God live. So there's that. That's going to be kick-ass. Maybe it's one of those things where once they start playing shows and they play the song live, people are going to be like, what the fuck was that song? You know? But anyway, so that's it. We did it. We made it through the episode. Holy shit. What an episode. This is probably one of the longest episodes I've done in a long time, actually. Almost 2 hours. Hope you enjoyed. I know I got in the weeds, but I mean, I hope that's kind of what I do. And I hope you got some value from it. This is a really, really cool song, and I can't wait to see what they do. Yeah, I think they're definitely on a creative kick, and it's going to be interesting. So regardless, all right, cool. Let's close it out. I got to go to bed. Yeah, like I said, do all that stuff, like, subscribe, comment. Please comment. I do this show because I want to talk to people. I want to have musical discussions with people. So tell me what you think. Tell me if anything I said was bullshit and stupid, or if you agree or whatever. I would love to hear it, genuinely. And if you go through all my videos, I respond to every single comment. I love talking with people in the comments. It's my favorite thing. I'd rather you comment than subscribe, honestly. Subscribers are more like a vanity metric at this point. I want to have conversations. So if you can't tell, I'm just fucking sitting here talking to myself for 2 hours. Of course I want to have a conversation. All right, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out. See you in the next one.